we'll be translating verbal expressions into algebraic expressions, so there's some terms we need to know. The first one is sum. When you see the sum, that refers to addition. So when you see this word sum, it means we're going to be adding. Okay? Sum is the same thing as adding. So if we read this, the sum of a number and 6. Makes sense. If you have a sum, you've got two things. So the two things we have is we've got a number and 6. Usually it's separated by that word and. Okay? So what do we call the number? Well, let's just use a variable. I'm going to use n for number. So we could write n. That's one part of the sum, and 6 is the other part of the sum. So that's how we would write the sum of a number and 6. What about the difference of a number and 2? Difference refers to subtraction. So when you see the word difference, it means we are subtracting. And again, notice it says of a number and 2. The two parts are separated by that word and. So whatever comes first, you'll put before the minus sign, and what comes after the word and is what you would subtract. That's how you would differentiate what goes first and what comes second. So again, let's just use n again to represent the number. It has to be a variable, and 2. So n minus 2 is how we would write the product of a number and 5. Product means multiplication. So when you see the word product, you have to associate that with multiplying. We've got a number and 5. So how would we write a number and 5 multiplied together? Well, you could say n times 5, right? Often you would write this as 5 times n. And the most simplified way of writing it is, you know, when you have a dot between it and you have a variable and a number, you could just put it together and write it as 5n. Ways of expressing subtraction, and there's a lot of little nuances here. Let's look at these. 6 more than a number, that refers to addition because we're doing more than something, so we're going to add it. So if it says 6 more than a number, think of 6 more than your age. Well, you'd have to know your age, and then you would add 6 to it. So in this case, 6 more than a number means you start with a number, so we have a number, and then we're going to do 6 more than that, so we're going to add 6 to it. Now the question is, could you write 6 plus n? Certainly, because n plus 6 does happen to be the same thing as 6 plus n. But these next 3 are subtraction, and it's going to make a difference what comes first before the minus sign and what comes after the minus sign. So let's look at this first one. 7 less than a number. So one technique is thinking about how you would answer this question. 7 less than my age. How would you get that answer? You would take your age, and then you would subtract 7 from it. So instead of starting with our age, we're going to start with a number, okay, and then we're going to subtract 7 from it. So this is tricky. It's not 7 minus n. What it's saying is 7 less than a number. It means you have to start with a number and then subtract 7 from it. Now, look at this third one. It's not the same. It says 7. Oops, it is the same. I didn't mean to put less than. I meant to put 7 less a number. A little bit different. 7 less a number. Well, first of all, most people don't talk that way, but you might see this once in a while. 7 less a number means we start with 7. Less a number means we take away that number. So this is 7 minus n. That's pretty tricky. What's the difference? It doesn't have that word less than. So again, for this one, 7 less than a number, if you're not sure how to do it, put in something you would know, like your age, and then do the same thing using a number as opposed to your age. 7 less a number, that's like saying 7 less 2. You mean you start with 7, subtract 2. 9 decreased by a number, it means I've got to start with 9 and I'm going to decrease it, so I have to take something away from it, and I'm going to take away the number. Again, I'll call it n. These are pretty tricky. By the way, these are all just expressions. They're not equations. We're not solving for anything. We're just writing an expression. Notice there's no verb. 6 more than a number. 7 less than a number, etc. No verb. It's not going to be an equation. There's going to be no equal sign. We're simply writing an expression from English into mathematical symbols. Let's try doing some that are used for multiplication. Alright, first one here. Twice a number. What does that mean? Twice a number just means 2 times the number. So if we're going to use n for the number, 2 times the number, you would just write as 2n. Now this next one, I'm putting 2 things together. It says 3 times a number. Well, what would that be? That would be 3n. Okay, 3 times a number subtracted from 10. Okay, so what are you going to start with? 3 times a number or the number 10? Well, you're subtracting from 10. So that means you've got to start off with 10, and then you're going to subtract something from it. And what are you going to subtract? 3 times a number. That would be 3n.